Hey everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's on the Tube, ActionX's show where we review shows episode by episode. We review shows season by season basis, or we review shows by first impressions or quick impressions or whatever discussion that may be. Today we are doing our Heels Season 1 review. Now, I had another plan for this review, but sadly things did not turn out the way they expected to do, which I'm not surprised. It's my life. I'm not really surprised over it. Plus, we have a very busy period of What's in the Tube coming up, so I couldn't punt this any further. So here it is. This is the Heels Season 1 spoiler-free review. So there is a lot to say, a lot to talk about. And honestly, let's just start off right away. Let's boil it down to the question we always ask every time we do these season reviews. Was Heels Season 1 worth it? Was it worth the binge? Was it worth the 8 episodes, the 8 hours of content? And the answer is yes, like unanimously. I believe for me, Heels is probably the first season at least. We'll see if it gets season 2 and beyond. Heels Season 1 is by far I believe, in the history of What's on the Tube, but we've done like over 260 episodes by this point. It's probably, for me, my most favorite first season review. It's literally the most perfect first season I've ever watched. And it's hard, like, yeah, you get like great, like How I Met Your Mother. I love that show with a passion. It's my favorite show of all time. Is it perfect? Not at all. Because you always view things in different lenses and different perspectives. And for that case, that had so much more of a resonance to my life. Heels is just an amazing story. It's not a movie. It's not trying to be a movie. It's trying to tell an 8-hour story in a little town called Duffy, between two brothers and the world they surrounded in the world of wrestling. And for me, I'm being completely honest with you, the only reason why I was even considering watching this show because of Stephen Amell. I watched Arrow. That's where I've learned of him. I loved him on Arrow, and I want to support him where he went next, because him moving from the CW to Starz was like a big move. It was like definitely like most TV actors tend to do, like, I just want to do movies or just do the con circuit, but no, he actually did want to do this show. And I was like, there has to be a good reason for him to jump back into a new TV show so soon after Arrow. So I'm like, this has to be something worth it. And then when slowly, surely, like, you put together the cast, which I'm like, Alexander, I forgot his last name. I feel so ashamed. And Kelly Burgundy. I'm like, oh my god, these are such people I know from my past. So I'm like, I'm definitely gonna watch the show now. And then when Michael Warren, who did Loki before Heels came out, like, he is the creator of the show. He wrote a good amount of it. I'm like, this show is gonna be something special. And now having been through 8 episode reviews, talking about it to death, this is probably going to be, depending on how Hawkeye Book of Boba Fett does, this will probably be the show. And again, let's see how Chucky goes as well. Heels might end up being the best TV season of the year. And that's blasphemy, because, like, I love Rookie as well. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, well, Rookie deserves a top spot. Heels is just so perfect because it definitely takes advantage of, like, smaller episode orders are the future. I said this before on Let's Talk, which is another show I used to do back in the day. I still do, but, like, I don't do that periodically anymore. For Heels, every episode mattered, every minute mattered. Even when a moment feels like it's not important, it just expresses where we're at in the story and where these characters are at. Like, I think I could sit down and just binge the entire show, and I would not feel like there would be a second wasted, because every moment matters, every development matters. It's nearly the most perfect season. There's always going to be like that one or two like critiques. I'm like, oh, I wish this would have been and it would have been so perfect. But this is probably like the most top tier caliber of a show, especially a debut show, that I've ever watched in recent years, as well as I've reviewed on my 2 years here. What's on the Tube? It is by far the most perfect, and that says a lot. And, you know, because I've reviewed now, I think, over a dozen shows. I've talked about like almost 24 shows by this point. It says a lot. And I've, of course, if you know me specifically, I watched hundreds of shows already throughout my childhood, and now more recently, I watched a lot. So, like, I kind of know the caliber of that. If my tier system was different, because for my tier system, like my personal top 10, which I did last year, you can go check that out, that I posted at the end of the year. my qualification is that it needs to have at least 2 seasons to be qualified. So if Heels cannot go on that list because it's only been 1 season. It's only like for now you can classify it as a mini series or a limited series, and I hope we get more. But of course, obviously, we may not get any more. We just don't know. We don't know what the nature of the future is. I'm just making sure the mic's fine. Of television, making sure we're recording. I could not wholeheartedly recommend it. I recommend to all my friends already. None of them have watched it yet, but the keyword is yet. I think I sold them a couple of them on it, so I cannot wait to see what their reaction is going to be. But the story itself is... Oh, by the way, before... I will only be spoiling anything up to episode 1, so if you do not want to worry. Also, the first 3 episodes of Heels are for free on Starz, and then after that you have to pay up for the Starz app to go watch the rest. But I don't know if it's going to be on a streaming platform. Starz doesn't really team up with anyone. They just team up with whoever the hell they decide to choose with. I think Hulu has an add-on, which is a lot of money, but like I would recommend trying to rent the season or, you know, something like that if you really want to watch it. But right now there is no like specific way to watch it, you know, besides the Starz app, which is a little bit more money. But again, the first 3 episodes are live on YouTube right now. Anyway, so... Continuing onwards, the story itself seems simplistic enough. It's something that I've always wanted to talk about. I've always wanted to explore because growing up in recent years, I've heard a lot about wrestling and the WWE and the minor like small AEW. That's as far as my memory is going to take me to that. But I've been around wrestling a lot. I've actually watched a wrestling match when I was a kid. I didn't know the context of it, and I only got a sneak peek of it during Young Rock this last television season, which I enjoyed. It was nice to kind of like tippy-toe the foot in a little bit, just know about the culture, know about the background. So, but I wanted a little bit more of a taste, similar to how last year when I reviewed Perry Mason, and I was teeing for something new, I wanted something new that I haven't really sunk my teeth into yet, and Perry Mason definitely satisfied that crave. This year was Heels. And honestly, I completely went into going to Heels like, this is probably going to be a pretty good show. Maybe at the end of the day, it is a higher tier network, so I'm pretty sure the writing's going to be more consistent, the quality's going to be better. I don't think it was going to be perfect, but then for me, I was like, well, let me go into it. I heard a lot of positive reviews. I was very excited for it, and then I saw the show. I'm like, this is freaking amazing. Like the story, like it's simplistic, but it's the core of the story is about brothers, about these 2 brothers that had a very different and very unique upbringing because of their father, and every action. I think another message about the show that's kind of important is that everyone's action has a cause and effect. Like I believe nearly everyone's decision throughout the show is spoken for and also is explained why. A lot of shows that I watch never really do that. They usually do like a very quick explanation, maybe, or we get the traditional like TV like A, B, C, like that sort of thing. This show takes its time and effort to explain why, and every time they do it, it's for a unique way or a different sort of experience, and that's what made this show like much more different than what I'm used to. Not to say like other shows I reviewed is like kind of traditional or typical. I'm not saying it like that, but I'm just saying this is something new that I'm like, they're taking the time. It's like it's movie quality, but it's on a TV show basis, and I feel like that's where kind of like the attention is going to with like Disney Plus doing the MCU shows and the Star Wars shows, and what HBO Max is going to do with the DC shows. The DC EU show plus the movie show, so that sort of thing. That's kind of where we're going to, like, you know, telling a much more high caliber story in a more limited time period and making every moment matter to the audience. Where, for me, like, again, like, I just got hooked in because, as always, and I'll get to this in a second, it's always the characters that tell the story. They're the people we're watching week to week. So if your characters aren't interesting, your story's never going to, hook me in as well. But everything does because they're the underdogs in a sense, and everyone loves a good underdog story. The DWL is one of those just many independent leagues around the states, around the globe, and they don't get enough traction. They don't get enough attention. They are like kind of like your small time niche YouTuber, kind of a little bit. Like the quality is there, the standards are there, and you kind of wish they'll do better, but at the same time, you're just up between so much competition. And this is that, and for the base story, like that's the story, like them trying to like rise up to the next level, trying to not be another WWE. I'm not saying that at all, but Jack Spade's entire journey throughout the season is mainly he wants to be a better man than his father, but he's having to make these tough choices, and at times the genetics of his father is affecting his mindset and clouding his judgment. Where even from episode 1, I could instantly tell, yeah, he and his wife have problems. He's very distant with his son. He is very distant about family. Even though he says, I care about my family, I love my family, but he wants to give them a better life. And the only way to do that is to make more money, which is to make the DWL this bigger thing to get a bigger income so that he can provide his family with what they want, what they deserve. But at the same time, he has to put in the work. He has to put in so much attention, so much investment. And then that eventually, like, it comes to the cost of, like, how much isn't enough? And then, it affects his relationship with his brother and what's more important, like the DWL or his family, and also the people that he has under his employment. Well, not really employment. They don't really say like 100%. They cannot make a living off the DWL. That's like literally next to impossible. It's not going to happen. And then you take Ace's side of things, which Ace is like your typical like young adult, like still trying to figure out his life. He thinks he knows what his life is. He's living like the peak life of like, he's good looking. He's got an amazing call girl. I don't know what the terminology is. I apologize, but he has all this, and he has an idea what his life is going to be like, but he hasn't learned the hard ways, because again, both of them had different upbringings. For Jack, he had a much more tougher childhood. He was much more strict upon, and he was much more being lectured, while Ace was kind of like the younger child, like kind of getting away with some sort of stuff, getting most of the praise because he is the youngest, and he showcased a little bit more potential. And similar with every small town father, it's like, that kid's gonna be our ticket out of this dump. We're gonna go big once they hit big. And obviously it didn't work out. In case, even just by episode 1, you could just tell like it doesn't work out. And just that alone, and plus, and I haven't even added into the other characters yet, and all the other aspects of this like world. And like, I'm so amazed how much they talked about and lean into this like unique world in 8 episodes. It's ironic, like a lot of shows needed 20 episodes to tell their world, and then this show did it in 8. And I'm like, every aspect of this world is so developed, and a good chunk of it by the end, and then you want to see more. You want to know more about them, where they can go next, or what more you can know about them. But even in those 8 episodes, like, you still get enough of the world to get invested. And honestly, this is, and then of course, obviously, I compare it to Chucky, where like right now, like I'm watching it and I'm really enjoying it. But the fact is, with Chucky, like, they're doing such a great job of doing, so far, like telling their own story and like introducing to newcomers. But at the same time, it did need to like have that established 7-film franchise prior to it to kind of tell that story in a much more more deeper way. Where it heals is like literally in 8 episodes. No, like literally this world is already established, ready to go, and you literally have that strong foundation already without any sort of backbone. And that's for the characters itself. Like, every character has a purpose. Every character has a story, and it's like, I'm so amazed like of how much even the side characters. Like, for me, the core 3 are Jack Spade, Ace Spade, and Crystal. Those are the core 3 characters. Everyone else is kind of like, not second. I'm not gonna call them secondary characters, but they're kind of like the supporting cast. They're around there, but they still get their own story. Between Willie and Wild Bill, and even I already forgot the names. Because it's been a while since I've watched it week to week. But even like the smaller wrestlers, like the background wrestler, not background, back up wrestlers. Even though they don't really get an episode to themselves, or they really don't get that many big moments, you still know a little bit about them, and it's like, it's just how you write the scene and how you communicate those characters. Like, I know a little bit. I may not know the name of this guy because I haven't watched the show in a while, but like, I know a fraction of him, and it's like, sometimes, like, even, like, let's say The Flash, like, you just get introduced to so many one-off characters in every episode just to, like, tell your story. And then after that, I was like, okay. I mean, I'll probably remember it when I rewatch the show again, but then most of the time, like, I'm gonna forget about it. It's it's crazy that they did that. That you had that energy for every character, for every direction. And I'm still, again, now that I'm really thinking about it, like, I'm still amazed of how much, how much they were able to do in those 8 hours, and how much, like, I want to see more of those characters. But at the same time, at the end of the day, and this is not a spoiler, at the end of episode 8, every character felt like this was a story where it's like, it was the perfect feeling of this story is complete. You want to see more, but if it ends it there, if we never get another Heels installment for the rest of my life, which is could be 50, 60 more years, I would be fine with it, because they told their story. They told these characters. This felt like a book. Well, okay, I use that thing now very loosely because I don't read books. I really don't. I don't have time to read books. But when an author, like, normally, like, an author would, like, have plans for, like, oh, what if we do more? Like, this is where I would like these characters to go. But this is just the example of, like, they're trying not to set up another season. They're trying not to give these characters a lot more to do, but, like, you can just fill in the pieces of, like, where do these characters think they can go. And maybe it's just your traditional ending, like, again, I won't spoil until the spoiler minutes with these characters. I won't spoil them at all how they ended up, but honestly, I can fill in the pieces of my own. Maybe it's just a traditional ending, like, they just leave it off there, and then we just never get to see them again. Like, that's how well written the story is. Like, it is just so, like, every major loose end is tied up so well that you kind of don't want to continue it, because you just don't want to ruin the magic of this first story. Well, hopefully of the story. Maybe it'll be a first story. Who knows if we get a second one. Now onto the characters itself. First of all, shout out to Stephen Amell. I mean, again, having seen him for 8 years on Arrow, and again, I know, like, doing a Georgian accent is not the most difficult thing, but, like, I believed he was from Georgia. I believed he was, and it's such a tonal shift where it's like, normally when I was reviewing Walker, like, seeing Jared Padalecki do Sam Winchester for 15 years, and then afterwards jumping into Cordell Walker, it took a bit of adjustment, because, like, I'm so used to see him in this certain dialect, in this certain tone, with this certain personality, that a couple of times in that first episodes, I kind of confused, like, oh yeah, I forgot, he's not Sam Winchester, or he's Cordell Walker. The moment he started out, Stephen Amell made the Jack Spade character his own, and I never once thought, this is Oliver Queen. Okay, besides the running scenes, well, the jogging scenes, basically, I'm like, okay, this is kind of like maybe, like, obviously jogging is kind of like a regimen in training for any freaking bodybuilder. I get that. But it's just, for this instance, like, I've never once thought of it like Oliver Queen or just anything of the story. Like, this was a unique thing, a unique new character for him, and I immediately sunk into there. And I felt for him, like, Jack is kind of, in a way, the protagonist of the story. He's not the main protagonist, but he is kind of like the figurehead we see through, because, like, he is the bigger name. He is the older brother. He is kind of like the face of the show. Even though on the show he's actually the heel, the villain. And you understand many times why he's doing this, why at times he forgets about his family and just wants to focus on the DWL, because he doesn't want it to end up like when his dad had it, where it doesn't go anywhere, and that they plateau after a while, they stay stagnant, they're losing money. He sees the business side of things, and he sees the potential, but it requires so much sacrifice that by the time by the time you get to that point where, like, you realize your mistakes, it may be too late. Whether I won't reveal what happens with him in his case, but, like, the realization eventually does come, and then you start to realize, like, was it worth it? Could I have done things differently? Was the end product still worth it? And that's the story I got along with. And the thing is that with this show is that it is not a good versus evil thing. It is not this is a good character, this is a bad character. Every character has a moral gray spot where it's like, these characters make good decisions and they make bad decisions. Jack has made a lot of good decisions at the long run because he cared about his family, whether it is his wife, his child, his mother, his brother, even his father at times. Like, we understand why he made those choices, but at the same time we understand he has done some pretty messed up stuff throughout the show, especially in the first episode and then especially throughout the rest of the run. And then everyone else is in that same bandwagon. Like, they've all made mistakes. They all have good intentions at times, but then sometimes they make a very bad choice. That is a human element. Like, there is always such a thing of the gray side of things, where like you could be good, but then at times you're gonna make that questionable bad choice. And at the end, there is no such thing as good and bad. Like, a lot of people say that a lot. Like, everyone just does what they think is right, and for them and for the people around them, they're the good guys. But then for other people, they're the bad guys. And then on the reverse side, the bad guys think they're the good guys because the people that are around believe in them and say, yeah, you're right. This is what we're doing. And then the other side of things, the good guys that we know of, they're the bad guys. In this show, like, everyone does not get classified as that. Only in the wrestling, in the wrestling arena. But otherwise, everyone, 95% of every character has that gray spot where, like, they have those good moments and they have those bad moments. Jack has had a lot of those moments, especially way more for Ace. And speaking of Ace, again, shout out to Alex Calderon, who played him. I've seen him before in Grown Ups 2, and this was, like, ironically, the weekend before the show was about to start, I went away for a weekend and I got to see Grown Ups 2 again on the hotel TV screen. And I was like, oh my god, he looks the same, except he's just more bulked up. I'm just so amazed by his range, because again, like, I've only seen him in one other work, so it's like, that was like traditional, like, stereotypical bully, very distant, very, very flat at times, because there's only just so much you're given as a character because you're part of an ensemble piece, and also as well as you're kind of like not the main focus, you're kind of like maybe a third focus at times. Here, he definitely demonstrates his range, and it's like, Ace at times is, again, another human element. It's confusing. Like, you can see in his very deep core, he is a good guy, but he's had so much shit happen to him in his life that when you eventually start digging your way back to the surface, you kind of understand why he's had to put up this personality. And also, again, he's young. He has a lot of immature traits that even in this season alone, he had to grow up a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. And because, he had to he realized these are the harder lessons. These are the mistakes that are made in life. Sometimes someone else's choices in life will kind of influence yours, whether you want them or not. It sucks, because even at the end of the first episode, you really feel bad for Ace, but what he does afterwards is also messed up. And you could say, like, oh, Jack caused this for me, so that's excusing my behavior. It's not. It really isn't. You should not let one person's behavior and how it affected you change your behavior, because you're trying to show them you're the better person. And you see that, and that's part of the growth for Ace. And that by the end of the season, like, he's changed a little bit. He has changed. Not incrementally a lot, but in a fundamental way, you can see, like, that is a very different Ace than we saw from episode 1. As for Crystal has had to fight a lot more. Like, she just started. I went to the show, again, very limited knowledge, very limited amount of footage available. I just thought Crystal was just going to be Ace's, like, they don't even classify themselves as boyfriend girl. They just are partners in this wrestling circuit that also have sex with each other. I initially thought that she was going to be that that one woman who's always thinking about, let's get out of town, let's get you to the next big thing so that we can start advancing our life. Crystal, when you eventually do get to see her story, you kind of understand why she wants to do that at times, because, like, her situation is very sad. I again, I don't want to spoil anything about those episodes, but I felt very sad for her, and I commend her for all the work she did, and especially go into the episode reviews and check them out and see what specifically she did. I was like, damn, I really feel for this character. I feel bad for her. And then when you get to that second half, you start to see, the turnaround and the comeback, and it's just like, wow. And then, like, you just realize from the beginning, it's like, this was all part of the story. This was all part of her journey, and it led to this point. And that ending that they gave her was, like, so thematically perfect, like, in such a way that you didn't expect it, but you actually did expect it. And it's just like, that's the beauty of this show, is that it makes you think this was what I wanted, but I didn't even know I wanted till it was actually shown. And that was the most awesome part when I was watching that finale. It's like, damn, they pulled this off. And of course, I can't talk about every character specifically, but Wild Bill, if you're a very squeamish person, you're gonna hate him, but you love to hate him. It's like Wild Bill, even like his name, it's like this guy's a pure piece of shit. You're gonna hate him, but like with every piece of shit, you grow to love him. And it's like even on his shittiest sentences, his shittiest decisions, you still feel for him. And then even at the end of the day, he even gets a little bit of redemption, a little bit, not too much. But I'm just saying, like, just a heads up, if you do see him, please be very aware for your eyes. My poor eyes have been hurt many, many times throughout this entire season run, and I'm like, oh, I really wish I never have to see those specific moments again in my life. And as for the characters, everyone else was just so likable, and they just had a right amount of focus to see that, yeah, this is very much a very well-developed world, and they know what they're doing. They know the story they're telling. They know these characters from the back of their heads, and now we know them to that certain extent. And I felt for that last moment where, like, I'm gonna get the spoiler minute right about now. The final locker room scene before the end of the season, where they're just like before the Georgia Fair is about to start up. When Jack said their family, you felt it. You definitely felt that. And I felt that. Where it's like, I really, like, I use the term family with my friends because that's what we are. That's what I view them as. But then when, like, other shows try to use it very quickly, I don't start to believe. Like, for example, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, in not even the first half of season 1, Coulson said, because I think Sky, her original name was Sky. When she was in critical care and, the doctor asked, who's her family? And Coulson said, we are her family. Like, nah, man, nah. Like, you guys are just way too early on in this relationship to be calling yourselves that. And I know that was more, but the thing is that the heels, gave every character the development and the emotion and the interaction to sell that, yes, they are a family. And I'm like, let's go, let's do this, let's pick it up a notch, let's do it. And they did, and it worked out so well that I fell for that line. And just that ending alone was like, oh man, they literally left everything off so perfectly. Every character's ending was like, that's how I wanted it to end, but you leave it a little bit to like explore, like, where could they go next? What could they do next? And again, I said this in the season 1 finale review, and I'll say it again. Those final minutes definitely felt like I could just imagine what happens next, and I would be fine with my imagination because, like, the directions are anywhere. It's limitless, and you want to see where they go next. But at the same time, like, maybe it's good to leave something perfect alone, because at the end of the day, Heels is probably the most perfect season of television I've seen in a very, very long time. It is something that is going to be very difficult to top. It's going to be very tricky to kind of do it again if they do a season 2 down the line. But regardless, if we're just viewing in the now, in this moment, Heels is well worth the watch. I recommend it to the toppest degree. I think for right now, it's What's on the Tube's most favorite show, the best season so far that we've ever reviewed from start to finish. It's like, it's consistently at its quality, and then it's constantly breaking what our expectations are, and also setting up new standards for what we're expecting from this show. And I love it. I really did. They freaking pulled this off, and was worth the ride. It was those 8 episodes, those 9 weeks we experienced together was amazing. And I will cherish these memories. I will cherish this first season, and hopefully if they do a DVD release, I will buy it. And hopefully one day down the line we will get a season 2, or maybe we'll not. But I'll gladly just see season 1 again as just the context of, like, this is just the one story we get and that's it. But this story enough, it's perfect. It's a perfect start to finish. It leaves you wanting more, but it also leaves you satisfied that this could just be all we get from this universe. And I think that's going to wrap up my piece. So again, I highly recommend this. You can go catch it out on the Stars app right now. Later platforms are TBD to up to Stars, what they do next. But again, I think, yeah, for me, my highest recommendation possible. Also, let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this season of Heels? Did you love it? Did you love it? Or did you love it? But yeah, let me know down below. I would love to have a conversation with y'all. But I think that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been What's in the Tube, reviewing the first season of Heels. If you want to know what we're doing normally on What's in the Tube besides our Heels reviews, currently we're doing DC Stargirl Season 2 episode reviews each and every Wednesday mornings after brand episode, on Tuesday nights on the CW, or free the next day on the CW app. We are also doing Walker Season 2 episode reviews each and every Friday mornings after a brand new episode, on Thursday nights on the CW, or for the next day on the CW. Yeah, we start up this Friday, by the way, so stay tuned for that. We're also doing Doom Patrol Season 3 episode reviews each and every Saturday mornings after a brand new episode on Thursdays on HBO Max. And we're also doing the... I forgot. For Nancy Drew Season 3 episode reviews each and every Sunday mornings after a brand new episode on Friday nights on the CW, or for the next day on the CW app. And we're also doing The Rookie Season 4 episode reviews each and every Monday mornings after a brand new episode on Sunday nights on ABC or on Hulu the next day. As well as this this also wraps up our Heels coverage. This is the end. Hopefully for now, maybe not. Normally 95% of the time we do something on What's in the Tube, it does come back for more, so hopefully this fits into that to that mold of, like, we will be back for more stories, for more episodes to review. But if it doesn't, that's totally fine for me. But if you have only joined me along for the Heels experience, thank you so much. Hopefully maybe you'll stick around, hear me talk about other shows. I've talked about a lot of shows by now, so go please check them out if you want to. But otherwise, if this is the end of our journey, maybe even forever, I thank you so much for joining me on this ride. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the views. I appreciate every like I've gotten, everything I've seen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hopefully we will meet again, but if not, I wish you the best. But again, if you're unaware, this has been What's in the Tube from ActionX. Please subscribe to us on youtube.com/ActionX videos. Like, favorite, share this review if you want to, but it helps us get us out there to other healers in the world who has yet to discover us. Helps us beat up the YouTube algorithm that hates me ever so much in life, and as well as sharing us for free here on the interwebs. And please also ring that bell for notification when our next review is live for Heels, which sadly won't be the case anymore because we're wrapped up with it today. But also just ring the bell whenever our next What's in the Tube is live. As well as follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates for the channel. But until then, for all you healers out there, again, thank you so much for the support, for joining me on this journey. Hopefully, I will see you again. If not, if this is the end of the road, I wish you the best in life. And that everything goes swimmingly. Maybe we will get this come back again for another round of Heels. But until then, stay safe out there. Be good to each other as always. And peace out.